Hi, everyone. We are going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to our webinar, Assessing Online Program Opportunities. We are excited to have you here today to learn more about this important topic. I'm Bethany Moran, Senior Vice President of Partnerships at EducationDynamics, and I'll be your moderator today. In just a few moments, we'll introduce our presenters. Next slide, please. At EducationDynamics, we believe in the power of maximizing human potential through people, teams, and organizations in higher education. Next slide. EducationDynamics is proud to be a part of shaping modern higher education. We understand to thrive in this market, you must focus on reputation and revenue, because we know tomorrow's challenges will not be solved with yesterday's solutions. Building a strong brand and empowering growth at institutions is what we do through a proven approach of applying a process of research, strategy, action, and measurement to lead to continuous improvement in our work every day with our partners. Next slide. And as you can see from this slide, our strong partnerships reap rewards. With over 35 years of experience, we manage $285 million in annual managed ad buys. We have 95% partner retention with the average tenure of 8.2 years, and our partners experience enrollment growth, which is 47% above the industry average. We have strong partnerships, and we are proud to be the recipient of the 2025 Enrollment Management Solution Provider of the Year. Meeting and exceeding our partners' expectations is what we do. Next slide. So before I pass this to Karina and Fritz, a few housekeeping items. This presentation will be recorded. We'll email you the link after the webinar, and the recording will be sent out sometime in the next 24 hours. I will also be monitoring the chat, so please feel free to post questions throughout the webinar. And of course, we'll take questions at the end if time permits. So now, Karina, I will let you and Fritz get started.
Thank you so much, Bethany. My name is Karina Kogan. I'm the VP of Partnership Development here at EducationDynamics. I just celebrated my 8-year anniversary here at Eddie, and I come with over 20 years of higher education experience. I spent a decade at the University of Phoenix and then several years at Excelsior University, coming from Excelsior to EducationDynamics. Here at Eddie, I am the person who has the pleasure of meeting new partners and putting together strategic partnerships to really identify what is the best way EducationDynamics can support enrollment growth of our partners. And I'm so excited to shed a bit of a light on our partnership with the University of Minnesota system today. So I'll turn it over to Fritz to introduce himself.
Thanks, Karina and Bethany. Hi, everyone. My name is Fritz Vandover. I'm a learning programs analyst at the University of Minnesota. I'm based in the Twin Cities, but we are a system campus, and our charge is to help units at the system, whether it's a college or a department or a program, analyze and figure out which online and hybrid programs they can scale, and whether it's coming from an existing program that's in person or if we're going to be launching a whole new program from scratch. So I think I'm in my 25th year in higher ed. I've been at Washington University and Macalester College, and I had some time at a small OPM just before I was at the University of Minnesota. This is actually my second stint at the university, and it's at that time when I was at the small OPM where I got to meet Karina several years ago before I was in this role. So it's great to be collaborating with Karina again, and so now I'm in our Office of Distributed Learning, and I've been here since the summer of 23, coming up on my 2-year mark here. And I'm really excited to talk today about the kinds of program analysis that I get to lead here as we support the system. So just a little overview we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about what we all know about the consequences of getting these kinds of program enrollment projections wrong and why we want to avoid that at all costs. I'll talk a bit about our office's approach, Online Program Support Services, OPSS, how we do this, And then I'm going to get into some probably familiar landscape, and I try not to be too much like Chandler being from Friends, but isn't Lightcast enough? And then I have a bonus round, and then Karina's going to tie some of these things together, all these things together, really, about how they relate to the modern learner, and then how we facilitate success together between the university and Eddie. So why do we not want to get this wrong? What are the consequences? Well, if we jump ahead a slide, we've all probably experienced this. What happens when we overestimate enrollment for growth for a new or existing program? And if you can pop it in the chat, what have your experiences been like? What's been the impact on your program or your institution? We all have lessons to tell from this. So if we can jump ahead, please, commiserate and self-support inside the chat. But these are the kind of silo or areas where we can see problems coming from inaccurate enrollment projections, and they can combine, they can spiral together, but it has negative impacts everywhere, whether it's on the viability of a program and negative margin, whether it's we've increased costs for staff and faculty and marketing, and all of a sudden it's not paying off. And then we have idle technology, we have idle personnel. Now we're starting to get in the doom loop of the feedback loop of reputation and poor student experience for whatever reasons. And it can go so far as to cause accreditation issues. And I didn't put it in here, but this is what can lead to programs and entire institutions being brought down. We've seen that. We see it more, especially in the smaller private institutions, but even, public institution systems having to consolidate campuses, like, for example, in Wisconsin, because of these challenges of enrollment, not just because of demographic shifts, but demographic shifts combining with the inability and inaccuracies in program enrollment projections. So I'm going to talk a bit about how we're doing this in our office. And we're a recent office. We've only been chartered since we were chartered in the fall of 2022 by our provost to provide a central place to do this. We're very decentralized, not even just our Twin Cities campus, but our whole system. We're a 5-campus system. And so, she wanted to offer a resource for all these units to coordinate and support them. So here's our rough approach. So let's say a program, and I'll get into details of one program, but for an individual program or a college, we'll come in and we'll do research, and we'll figure out what the program is, or if a program can be scaled, and we'll get into that process. That's the bulk of this talk. But I want to talk a little bit about what else we do. So we help sketch out not only can it scale, but all the resources they need to do that. So part of it is I develop a very, very comprehensive financial model with them off of their CFO in that particular college. So we get very granular about not only what the financial impact could be if it goes well, but just in general what it looks like. And our office not only helps provide this, but then depending on the program, we will provide capital, a loan, an investment to help them scale up, keep them moving and afloat, that program above water while it's scaling up. And then we do to reduce that financial burden. And then we do a payback schedule, interest-free with very generous terms. And part of that is this whole OPSS model is we developed in the early 2024, we did an RFP. EducationDynamics came through that process, which we were very fortunate. So we have a bench of vendors and external partners that provide marketing, enrollment, research, so that individual units don't have to do an RFP every time they want to do this. So it allows for speed in a setting that is not often known for speed. And then, of course, we work with our central units, instructional design, curricular development around the system to knit together what we already have. So part of it is just coordinating all the resources at the university and bringing in our external partners when it makes sense. So this is just a quick look at how this process works. Now I've highlighted two of those parts, the marketing research and the financial modeling, but just want to give you a quick look at how OPSS works from the initial consult all the way through to when we execute and begin implementing an OPSS relationship. So we're going to dive into those first two, the market research, and I'll touch a bit on the financial model. So the program we're using as our lens today, you can jump back forward, thank you. Program we're talking about is our journalism school of journalism's Masters of Strategic Communication. So they have, it's a long time program. I mean, 20 years old. It's been on ground pretty much the whole time. And so they want to grow, and they want to explore a broader market by offering the program online. So I'm starting with where we are right now after having been working with EducationDynamics for 6 months now. So you can see things are going well. We have a very high inquiry to appointment conversion, a very big increase in the number of applications year over year, and not just year over year, but moment to moment. So where they were last year, they're 266% higher for this point in the cycle for fall. Same thing with the number of admitted students. They're 500% growth over last year, where they were right now in May for their number of committed students for the fall. So they're thrilled. They're just getting much more traffic and much more interest, and just finding that they're going to meet that goal. They want to go from about 15, 20 students a year to about 80 students a year. So they're on their way to that. And so we are very thrilled with where things are. So let's talk about how we did the work to get there. So overall, our approach is we want to get to that bottom box, the defensible enrollment estimate. How do we do that? So I came up with this structure, and working with Karina, we've honed it a lot. But what we want to do is we want to take the trailing indicators that everyone knows about, conferrals and enrollments, or conferrals from government data resources, the yellow box, the gold, that's University of Minnesota gold. But we want to put this in tension. We want to put all these three indicators in tension with each other to get to that estimate. So we need demand-informed indicators. That's really where Eddie comes into play and helps us immensely. And then also we have to, obviously, in this day and age, we need to bring in the labor-informed leading indicators. What kind of career paths can people have? But we don't rely on one of them. We make them talk to each other and go in tension with each other to figure out what's a reasonable estimate of enrollment for a program. So we're going to dive into each of these boxes. So let's start with that conferral-informed trailing one. So I do a lot of this work, and I use the kinds of data sources you'll recognize, and I'll talk about Lightcast in a moment. But what we want to do is we want to use recent conferral data, not since 2012, when, say, online enrollments or conferrals started being reported. But we don't want to go super far back, because we start distorting demand signals with past good times, or the post-recession growth in enrollments that a lot of institutions and higher ed saw in general, or at least returning students, even though I won't get into all the demographics, but we know where we all are. We're in a planing down moment. Anyway, but we want to use recent because we don't want to, we want to have at least a reasonable thought about what kind of growth we might see based on that recent data. So moving ahead here. So I wanted to show, so if you came to my talk at Insights EDU, I was much more like how-to and nuts and bolts. I do a lot of that here. I show you a lot, but I want to at least show you what I do. So for this strategic communications program, these are the two SIP codes that I'm pulling from. And then I'm looking at competitor programs from other SIPs, but here's what I do is I look at the number of programs, I look at their most recent conferral data I can find, and 2023 is still our most recent. I look at the range, I look at the median, I look at the average, I give a guess of completion years across all those programs, and then I give a guess what I think the completion rate is. So I take that descriptive data, and if you go forward a slide, Lindsay, then I do, Karina yesterday when we were practicing, she was like, Fritz, you're going to tell me your secret sauce. I'm like, well, my secret sauce is algebra. So basically what we're trying to do is we're trying to figure out not just what the conferrals are, but what are the total enrollments in those programs in that academic year based on that conferral data. We're trying to, if we can figure out the most recent enrollment data, maybe we can figure out the next enrollment amount we can get to individually based on competitors, peer institutions, et cetera. So I'm trying to figure out from that top row, the next row, what kind of program enrollment, average enrollment do I had, could there have been or might have been, and then trying to guess based on that time to completion and attrition rate, what might their enrollment have been, their new student enrollment might have been in the fall of 21, which was when those students from 2023 would have matriculated. And then if the math is right, it should show the anticipated conferrals per program in the spring that IPEDS reported. So that's what we're trying to do, is estimate enrollment, not just conferrals. So we're baking in attrition and all that, so we can maybe get a guess at what we might get next year or maybe even 2 years. This is more art than science. So let me be upfront about this. So now, having said all that, I'm going to hand it over to Karina. She's going to talk about the demand-informed side and insights that Eddie provides.
Thank you so much, Fritz. I truly believe that this portion is often the portion of research that is missing within institutional research, because as you'll see, there's a lot of art and science that is incorporated into the research and projections that we provide to our partner institutions. So again, I'm going to let you all in on a little secret and how we do it and what tools we use, so that you can really understand the back end of how we come up with the projections, and most importantly, cost of acquisition, right? Because you can have all the different indicators that indicate demand, job demand, and conferral demand, and so on. But if it's too expensive for the institution to acquire a student or a number of students you're looking to acquire from marketing channels, then it might just not make sense. So I believe that this part of the research is a crucial part that will really help the institution determine the return on the investment, and really how much is it actually going to cost to bring in an X amount of students that we're looking for. So in our media planning process, we really look at 3 different buckets, 3 different components. Organic search and website marketing is at the core of everything that we do, right? We want to get as many students coming to us from website marketing channels, because these are going to be the highest quality, highest intent students that we're going to be putting into the pipeline and generating that student demand. For new programs, we look at historical organic search volume, we look at your Google Analytics data, and also use some of our own tools like SEMrush, Screaming Frog, and others to estimate and project what is the number of projected enrollments we are going to be able to generate from website marketing and SEO channels. And then we kind of look at across the portfolio at EducationDynamics of similar programs, what are the conversion ratios of inquiries that are coming in from that channel, so that we can really project how many actual enrollments are going to come from that channel. So that's step number 1. Step number 2 is really looking at the paid performance. This is where we really use our Google tools like Google Ads, Keyword Planner, and Forecast tools to gauge existing search volume for the specific programs. So I know we're talking about StratCom here. So we really looked at, keywords related to strategic communications and program. We looked at the brand components, the desired territory that we want to target for that program, to really figure out what are the projected, cost per inquiry from a paid channel going to look like. In addition to that, as Bethany mentioned, we are Google's largest partner in higher education space. So we spend over $275 million on behalf of our partners in paid channels. So we have a wealth of knowledge from that channel and from Google. And we get quarterly insights from Google that really help us estimate, the search volume and the costs and different things from paid search component that we can incorporate into our paid media plan. And similarly to how we estimate inquiry to conversion ratios, we really look at, what is the data that is coming from, from other alike programs, and how are we converting those paid leads down funnel, so that we can help estimate what is the cost of enrollment from the paid channel that's going to need to be incorporated into Fritz's formula. And then the third one is really the delta here. Estimated stealth applications is always hard for a new program, but we really look at, really other new programs that an institution, recently launched. What is the volume that's coming from there? And, really trying to estimate what we can see from other alike institutions and programs in terms of stealth volume. In addition to that, we really want to make sure that we understand if the institution has other, efforts, just like corporate partnerships and other efforts that they're going to be using to drive those applicants to just go in and fill out an application. So lots of different research and lots of different numbers and analytics that we put into this process. And on the next slide, you will see the way that it actually comes together. So it comes together in a spreadsheet, and this is what we provide to Fritz and our partners, where, all of the estimates of cost per inquiry and cost per enrollment is really all the back end data and research that we do. And then we help Fritz understand, in order to get the desired amount of enrolls, which is in this case was 44, this is the paid media investment that we need to put in. Our expected cost per inquiry is about $180 from paid channels. Inquiry to enroll rates are just kind of different by program and by channel. So we again estimate that by looking at other like programs, and then we help project what the cost per inquiry, cost per enrollment is for marketing and other fees that we project, so that Fritz can really plug that into his extensive spreadsheet and help the institution understand what is the return on that investment, and if that makes sense, and how much revenue the institution is going to be generating from this investment. So I'll turn it back over to Fritz to talk a little bit more about the other labor-informed leading indicators that he incorporates into the approach.
So I'm not going to go into deep detail, and honestly, this is a part where we're still, I'm still iterating and improving how we do this. We're just a staff meeting today. We were talking a lot about how we can do this, especially we read a book about Gen AI in our office, and it sparked a lot of conversation. So, but largely, and this is, those who know, if you know, this is a screen capture from Lightcast. What we're generally looking for, though, is positive estimates, at least from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and employment groups or professional groups related to professions. What are the trend lines for those professions? So we wouldn't tell a program, we would advise them if there's a downward trend for graduates of these programs, that at least in the near future, you can see this is a 5-year projection, we would flag that as a cautionary note and maybe a reason to not do a program. And often, if you go to the next slide, let me continue in this. So again, what we're looking at is not only just projections, but also from Lightcast, they're spending a lot of time developing metrics and ways to get a sense of the forward projected growth in the need for skills in certain professions. So these are the skills that are highlighted in job postings for roles that people with Stratcom masters tend to head towards. So these are the skills they're saying that are in a rapidly growing over the next, I can't remember their span, 3 or 4 years. So again, we're looking for these things to be in the green. And then we also flag these as, do your courses and does a program include these kinds of things? These are the skills that employers are looking for. So does your curriculum reflect that? So, and I'll go into a little detail, especially because this is an important part of the partnership here. So again, I said I create this, and I'm happy to share it with someone if you reach out to me through LinkedIn or by email afterwards, because it's a monster. But I create a very granular pro forma for the program. And I work, like I said, I work with the CFO, I work with program directors. I mean, I always joke with them. I say, look, you can put in everything you want in here. Printers, stamps, paper clips, obviously all the costs of instruction, any cost, professional development. Let's put every cost you can possibly think of that this program should or will or does bear. Let's put it in there to figure out that what's the real margin of this program now, and then what would it be if we can grow it, including all the costs. So I take what Karina gives me, the enrollment projections and the cost to reach those enrollments. And that's not just that I put it in once. We were talking yesterday as we prepared. I do it over and over as those maybe adjust. It's a continuous cycle because then I can figure out what is their budget, or is this too much or too little? Is the growth looking like, could they handle that growth? And then someone had asked a question, how do, I think it was even before questions that were shared before today. What I do is, I discount it to say, look, maybe we won't, between the trailing and the demand and the labor indicators, they may show a huge growth pattern, but they may not get there because that's the nature of higher ed right now. So we'll discount the most. I'll discount it a ton to see, like, look, maybe we hit 50% of our goal. Does the program break even at that point? To show, it's a way to show confidence. Like I always say, if it floats at a discount and with very conservative, aggressive metrics for enrollments being low, costs being high, if it's still creating a break even or margin or whatever margins it is the goal of that unit, it could be an acceptable loss. That is not our say. Then we have confidence. And we look at whichever, like what that defensible estimate is. If it's higher, great, that's the blue sky. So this just gives this is a snapshot from it, but it's multiple sheets that are all chatting with each other, communicating across. It's a pro forma that the unit signs off on, their CFO gives a thumbs up to when we're ready to sign our MOU. So they know exactly, and I bake in all sorts of inflation and like labor costs going up because of healthcare and all that stuff. It's very granular. So that's just a little overview of that. And again, I'm happy to talk to folks about it. So, sorry, I'm looking over my notes here for the slide. We would not be able to do, frankly, I can do the labor part and the trailing part, but I can't do the demand insights. What are people looking for right now? That is from Karina and her team is so important. I can't do that. It takes so much expertise and knowledge that frankly, we just don't have the capacity for, and it's changing all the time. So to have that feedback that gives us a sense of what do people want right now and what are they looking for is so important that we would not be able to do what we're doing. Well, the StratCom program would not be where it is right now without that insight. So I can't stress enough having that current contextual insights to help us get this right. So let's go ahead and roll forward. So the question, my question is, isn't Lightcast enough? My response is, ta-da. Moving forward, no, it's not enough. Don't do that, okay? So let's jump ahead. So those who know, Lightcast does a lot of things well. As you'll see on the left, we can see what conferrals have been by all sorts of factors. We can see who the current competitors are, at least for that conferral year. We can get current labor market trends by all sorts of factors. We can get occupational trends from their channels, BLS, et cetera. But there's things that it does not do well. And that's what I was trying to account for. I try to account for in the way that I'm calculating recent enrollments and recent attrition and recent new, how many they're enrolling per year in that most recent year. So I wouldn't say they do timely conferral data because, again, 2023 is still our most recent year. We haven't gotten 2024 yet, and things are obviously very disruptive to the Department of Education. So also it doesn't do well, and I call them ambiguous competitors. So, a program in data science might report to this zip code. Another one might report to that zip code. So you've got all this messiness that you have to try and account for, and it's maddening. You also have like non-degree programs, things that just don't show up in government data right now in any way that's at least clear. So it's problematic. Again, that gets into the competitor analysis. It doesn't do competitor analysis. You have to do that work, which is interesting, but it's a slog. It's down in the weeds, mucky, qualitative work. And yes, you can do some things with AI with it, and we'll get into that. So it doesn't do enrollment projection. It does enrollment backwards looking, and obviously it doesn't do any of the financial feasibility. That's all, you have to do all that work. So things I use it for that are useful, whenever you're doing when you first run an analysis, the things I look for, and again, this isn't to say the future is that bright, but I'm looking for what's the last few years look like. If the number of institutions is growing that have entered the market, is the number of completions outpacing that? So that's just it's a very high level signal. It is not a prediction. It's just a good indication, like, there might be a there. Sometimes you'll see they're equal. Sometimes you'll see more institutions and a little bit of growth. So you're looking for those things to just get a very glimmer of what it might be that we then set against. When we do our analysis, I do it, and then I set it against what Karina and her team are saying. Again, we're in tension, remember? So if we keep going forward a slide, and that's, by the way, that was for StratCom programs. That's coming from the analysis I did. So now I've been cautioning about, it's like your stock portfolio. Past performance is no indication of future performance. So some people, I think, are tempted to take the past trend and just find the slope and draw a line and call it the future. And I'm saying, don't do that. That's dangerous. Because for a lot of those, now it's planing off, or it's going down, or some programs are going up and down. So you can't just draw a slope and call it good as a prediction. That's where we can get into real trouble. And I think institutions have. And I will also say that a lot of non-education dynamics companies that offer their services, this is pretty much what they do, because they don't have the insights to accurately predict. They can't predict it anyway to perfection, but this is what they do, is they take a very rough guesstimate to call it the future that they can get to. So let's go forward. Onward. So, but there's more. So I got a bonus round. And this is what everyone wants to know. Can't AI just do this for me? Isn't it that good yet? And my answer is not yet. So this actually comes from, what is today, the 8th? So 2 days ago. And I did this for my presentation at Insights EDU, but I updated it just to make sure it was still valid. Knowing what we know, what I know, and what we know about the StratCom program, what the analysis that I did and Karina's team did, I asked it what it would, if it could even get close to the same conclusions we reached. So I asked it, how many master's degrees conferrals were there for this zip code, which is one of the zip codes for the program. And that's its answer. It tells me how to find that information, but it didn't tell me the information. At least, so our University of Minnesota, we have access to Copilot. So I'm using Copilot. ChatGPT might have different answers. I don't know. I wanted to use our enterprise tool. So if you read through that, like, it's telling you how to do it, how to find it. So then I was like, okay, I asked it a different way. Is there additional demand? Could we get 20 more students each academic year? And it didn't give me an answer. It gave me a framework, a pretty good one for how to, and there's more detail below those bullets, but I didn't want to include all that detail, but it couldn't provide me. Basically it's like, maybe, it says here, it could probably accommodate more than 20, probably, maybe, it's plausible, it says. So as far as just asking it straight up, can you do this? If I did a very detailed, a model and created my own, could it get closer? I don't know. But at this point, I use it more for things like, okay, here's my competitor institutions. Here's the links to all their curriculum pages. Tell me what the themes are in those curricula. Are they applied focus? Are they theoretical? And then I'll spot check. If it's 20, I'll look through 10 of them, make sure it's coming back. Or I'll say, hey, here's competitors. What are the biggest employers within a 75-mile range of each of those cities where those institutions reside? Because that's a painful search. You can do it, but I'd rather have something accelerate. So I still see right now AI in what I do as an accelerant for the expertise that I already have. And Karina can speak to how you all use it in your part of this, in part of our structure here. But that's how I'm using it thus far. So now I'm going to send it back to Karina to tie it all together.
Thank you, Fritz. I think we talked a lot about the science today, about the science behind making our projections and how we come up with the numbers. But I think that the most powerful thing about everything we're talking about today is the strong partnership that we have. I think it's really evident in the tenure of our partners, which is over 8 years, as Bethany mentioned, that we truly believe that our partnerships are successful because of our transparent communication and how we work together, how we consistently communicate, and we truly see ourselves as an extension of your team. And we do believe that that science portion also comes with some art. And I want to dig into a little bit of art and what we know about the modern learner and how we know about, their behaviors and preferences. So as you think about launching, new online programs or like growing your online portfolios, I think it's really important to really understand who your modern learner is, what are their behaviors, preferences, and here at EducationDynamics, we really incorporate everything we know about the modern learner into everything that we do on the marketing or enrollment services side. So just to remind you, a modern learner is truly someone who's the architect of their own educational journey. They really prioritize flexibility and accessibility over traditional academic experience. So as you probably know, we publish a modern learner report, which we used to call the online college student report. For the last 12 years, we've published this report, and for many reasons, because of the changes in behavior and preferences today, we have renamed it the modern learner report. We have a true deep knowledge into behaviors and preferences of modern learners. And we at EducationDynamics believe that these are very important factors that really help institutions that are successful in helping recruiting, retaining, and graduating modern learners. These factors are really important to understand. So what we did here is we took the 72-page report that you probably all have seen. And if you haven't, I would highly recommend that you download that. But we took the report and we really wanted to sum it up to like the very big, important key points that you should consider as you're thinking about how to best structure your online programs within your institution. So the first and most important factor, of course, the 3 C's that modern learners care about is cost. We all know that the modern learner is very cost conscious. However, they will pay more if you have the program, that they really, really want, and, they might not be able to find it at the cost that they're desiring. Convenience is really not just offering an online program anymore, right? Everyone has online programs. When we talk about convenience, we really talk about how many entry points do you have? How quickly can someone get started? How much flexibility do they have to design and architect their journey, jump in and out of classes and go at their own pace? And of course, career outcomes. What is this education going to do for them in terms of their career progression and being able to earn more money for their life and their family? One of the other big shifts that we're seeing in the search behavior of modern learners is really in the way that they are searching. So a few minutes ago, I talked a lot about, the tools and different things that we look at when we make projections in terms of paid search and how all that plays out. But one of the things that's important to understand, and that is actually a big behavioral shift, is the fact that modern learners are searching by school name first and then program. So if you look at like the growth from like 10 years ago on how online learners were searching was really by program, online MBA, and there you go. Today, modern learners have become a lot more sophisticated. So they will look for the institution and then the program. So being able to grow awareness of your programs, that you offer them online, that you have these options for learners is really, really important. The other factor that's been a big takeaway that we consistently talk to our partner institutions about is the speed to which you admit students. Just like everything in our life today, we want instant gratification, right? Like I want to be able to click on Amazon link and order something and get that tomorrow delivered at my door. Similarly, modern learners just want to know, do you want them or not? You know, how quickly are you making that admit decision? Modern learners expect, you know, about a week turnaround time, but I'm proud to say that for StratCom program, they actually make an admit decision within 72 hours. And we do believe that that's been a huge factor in the success of the growing enrollment for this program. So super important, specifically because we also know that 32% of modern learners will continue to search and apply to other institutions while they already applied to your program. And lastly, you know, just keep in mind, your modern learners are not just one-time learner, right? Like if you think about all the changes that's happening all over, you know, the different industries today, they know that they will probably need to reskill and retool sometime in their lifetime. So, you know, make sure that you understand that you're setting yourself up for future enrollments and that your modern learners are going to continue to come back and get other, certifications and, education from your institution as well. So what are some other key things that I wanted to mention besides the brand first, brand searches first today that's affecting higher education marketing? And of course, AI. Everywhere you go, everything you read and everything you do today is all about AI. And, it's not a secret that AI is swiftly evolving in the marketing space. Today, when we search on Google, we're getting Gemini, to answer our questions. So how are we preparing our marketing practices for zero-click searches and AI overviews, understanding that a lot of prospective students are searching today on social platforms like TikTok and YouTube. So how are you working with your partner and your institution to make sure that you're preparing your marketing to really address those new happenings within the marketing space? So here at EducationDynamics, we're very proud of the results that we accomplished for our partner institutions by working together as an extension of your team. As we mentioned in the beginning, our partners outperform in terms of enrollment growth industry average by 47%. We talked a lot about the StratCom program and the results that we're seeing there. We have other examples like the Masters in Tribal Resources and Environmental Stewardship for the University of Minnesota that we're seeing great results on as well. And we work with quite a few other programs within the system and support over 65 partner institutions in helping them enroll over 115,000 students on an annual basis. We're very proud of the impact that we make at EducationDynamics and, proud of the work we're doing with the University of Minnesota.
Can I add a point there about the MA in Tribal Resource Environmental Stewardship? It is a smaller program. It's obviously very niche, but just to give you a sense of the impact, that growth is supporting 2 new tenure track faculty. It's there on our Duluth campus. That's real, in a time when that's usually the stuff getting cut. That is huge for them and for those students.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that is so important. And that is all we have for you today. I know there's probably quite a few questions in the chat, but we also, Fritz and I, on the next slide, have provided our contact information. We're here to support you, to answer any questions for you. I'd love to work with you on helping you, put together projections for your programs, new programs or existing programs. But I'll turn it over to Bethany for Q&A.
Yes, thank you, Fritz and Karina. That was very informative and interesting. Fritz, I see your pencil working away in the chat. Would you like us to, do you want to answer any of these live, or do you want to continue to type it out in the chat? I'll give that's your preference.
You know what, there's not a ton in here, so I think I can tie a few of these together. There's been some questions. There's one from Kristen about how do you do demand projections for programs that are future facing and the jobs are unknown? And Kristen points out that the BLS is trying to, the BLS tries to provide something, but it can't account for that kind of space. It does its best, but there's known problems with that. So, and that ties into another question about Andre had about Lightcast doesn't provide ranges, for job growth, and is 4% enough? So I think that the way, and again, this is what we were talking about today, where I want to build out that part of OPSS is tying in more with our projections, or at least our process with, say, the career services units around the university and employer and professional advisory boards that provide insights to all manner of programs and colleges at the university to get a sense of how do we do that, how do we prepare students even in these programs for professions that are changing rapidly? And I can speak to this. Look, I have a history major and a master's in American history in addition to my doctorate. So I have I was in a bachelor space, or excuse me, a humanities space 25 plus years ago, and that was really murky. What am I going to do with this? Well, I also had a lot of tech knowledge and skills. So I went into the space initially where technology and humanities were intersecting, and got to do some really interesting work when digital humanities, as they call it, was just in its infancy and no one knew what to do. But if you had knowledge, you could do a lot and you could go all over the place. So how do we prepare people for worlds like that? And I think that's how we're going to do it, is by not relying on one thing, kind of like we do with our process with Eddie. Anyway, we have multiple inputs to try and triangulate where could they go and what are the foundational kinds of knowledge that they'll need in these specific programs. Now, our office is not going to tell the StratCom program or this other program, you need this in your curriculum, but we are going to say, these are the trends we're seeing, especially in programs that are doing well in this time frame. We can see their curricula from their websites, or by crawling even deeper, or even secret shopping a little bit. So these are things to be aware of. And then we bring in career services or other kinds of professional inputs so that we are really helping amplify and empower the faculty who are ultimately going to make those decisions to then create a program that makes room and prepares graduates for those murky professional spaces.
And Fritz, I will add here that, the research that I talked about from the standpoint of search volume and other things that, tools that we look at, if you have a program that you're trying to grow that is just a program of the future and no one is searching for and no one is aware of that program, it truly is going to be able to be hard to scale enrollment in that program, right? Because you have to capture that demand. Obviously there's going to need to be other channels that you have to increase investment into. So like really growing maybe the awareness of this particular area and why you should get this degree, or, think about investment into the degree that's maybe not as known yet, but it's just going to be hard to scale that until prospective students know about it and start looking for it as well. So that's like definitely a factor there of expectations of those unknown or future programs that we want to think about. You probably will have to start slow and continue, wait until that awareness of the program really grows in order to grow enrollment in that.
Great. Any final thoughts before we end our time together today? All good? Well, we appreciate everyone's time. Fritz and Karina, thank you again. And for those of you listening and watching, you will receive a copy of this webinar along with the slide deck. And we appreciate your time. And please feel free to reach out to Karina or Fritz. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.